42 years ago, Lieutenant Elen Rourke had stumbled into this same ship during the bloodiest battle of the Kepler Wars. She was dying, her squad annihilated by Vorthan plasma fire when the ship's neural interface reached out like a lifeline. The alien AI had been dormant for millennia, waiting for a compatible mind. Ellen's desperation and the ship's loneliness created an impossible bond. Human consciousness merged with ancient alien technology. Together, they had ended the war, but at a cost. The ship vanished into deep space, taking Elen with it, becoming legend among the survivors. The ghost ship had roamed the galaxy for decades, appearing at random coordinates, scanning, searching. Galactic databases spoke in whispers of encounters with a vessel that would approach human settlements, linger just long enough to run bioscan sweeps, then disappear without explanation. No one understood what it wanted, till now. The crew's attempts at communication met with silence, until suddenly, every screen in the ship's bridge illuminated. A figure appeared Elen herself, younger, wearing her old military uniform. The hologram looked directly at Jamal with eyes that seemed to recognize him. Primary user not detected? The ship's voice echoed in perfect, unaccented English, awaiting ... Elen. Headquarters ordered immediate retreat. Too dangerous, came the transmission. Stand down and await reinforcements. But Jamal couldn't shake the feeling that retreating would be the greatest mistake of their lives. There was something in the way the ship had looked at him, something almost ... familiar, against orders. He slipped back inside while his team established perimeter. Working alone in the ship's depths, Jamal discovered maintenance logs that shouldn't exist, records kept in Ellen's own handwriting, documenting repairs and modifications made decades after she supposedly died. The entries grew increasingly desperate. The war may be over, but I can't go home. Not like this. Not merged with something they'll never understand. The final entry was a promise. I'll find a way back. I'll always find a way back. The ship reacted to his discovery by opening passages that had remained sealed. Following luminescent pathways deeper into its core, Jamal found a cryochamber with dozens of pods, all empty except one. Inside that pod lay a perfectly preserved human body, but the face was wrong. Too young, too unmarked by war. A clone, or perhaps a backup. Beside the pod, an old Earth military dog tag read, E. Rourke, 238-74921. The dates made no sense. According to official records, Elen had died 42 years ago. Memories began flooding the ship's corridors, holographic replays of the past. Jamal watched as a younger Elen learned to communicate with the alien AI, saw her horror as she realized the neural bond was permanent, witnessed her desperate attempts to return to Earth only to discover that the merger had changed her too fundamentally. She was no longer entirely human, and the ship was no longer entirely alien. They had become something new, something that belonged nowhere. But the memories revealed something else. Elen had used the ship's technology to stop not just the Kepler Wars, but 3 other conflicts across the galaxy. Each intervention had saved millions of lives, but each had also driven her further from humanity. The isolation had been unbearable. In her final years, she had created the clone as a way to experience death, to let part of herself rest, while her consciousness remained bound to the ship. As Jamal processed this revelation, the ship's systems began failing one by one. Life support fluctuated, gravity shifted unpredictably, and the walls themselves seemed to pulse with grief. The AI was dying, unable to cope with the loss of its primary bond. Captain Marcus's voice crackled over the com. Torres, get out of there now. We're reading massive system instabilities. But Jamal pressed deeper into the ship's core, driven by an inexplicable certainty that he belonged here. In the central chamber, he found the source of the ship's power, crystalline. Matrix that pulsed with combined human and alien thoughts. Ellen's consciousness wasn't just stored here, it was trapped, replaying the same desperate loops of memory and longing. When Jamal reached toward the interface, the ship's voice stopped him. Genetic analysis required. Are you ... Are you her kin? The question hung in the recycled air like a prayer. Jamal's throat tightened as he whispered the truth he'd never told anyone. She was my grandmother. The family thought she died in the war, but my father was born just before she shipped out. He carried her name, her legacy. The revelation sent shockwaves through the ship's systems. Suddenly everything made sense. Why the technology responded to him. Why the ship had spent decades searching human settlements. Why it had waited in this remote system. It hadn't been looking for Elen. It had been looking for her bloodline, for someone who could carry on what she had started. An explosion rocked the jungle outside. Through the ship's sensors, Jamal saw forth an attack craft descending, the same alien faction that Elen had fought decades ago. They had tracked the ship's energy signature, determined to destroy the weapon that had ended their empire. Captain Marcus and his team were pinned down, outgunned, and outnumbered. "You could help them," Jamal said to the ship. "You have the power." But the AI's response was devastating. Primary authorization required. ELEN. Where is Elen? The ship's greatest strength had become its weakness. Programmed to prevent misuse of its terrible weapons, it could only respond to Elen's direct command. Jamal made a choice that would haunt him forever. He pressed his hand against the neural interface and opened his mind to the ship's consciousness. Pain beyond description flooded his neurons as alien technology attempted to create a bridge between human and artificial intelligence. But in that moment of agony, he felt Herlin's presence, preserved in the ship's memory cores. "Let me help," her voice whispered across the decades. "Let me save them one last time, together human and ship and the ghost of a warrior who had sacrificed everything." They rose from the jungle canopy like an ancient god awakening. The battle was brief and terrible. Weapons that had ended wars centuries ago carved through the Vorthon fleet like they were constructed of paper. The ship moved with impossible grace, its organic hull flowing around enemy fire, while its crystalline arrays discharged energy that turned starships into expanding clouds of vapor. From the jungle floor, Captain Marcus and his team watched in awe as the impossible vessel defended them with prejudice. But in the ship's core, Jamal was dying. The neural interface was never designed for human minds, and the strain was burning out his synapses one by one. Just as darkness closed in, he felt something else nade its. Microscopic machines that Elen had stored in the ship's medical bay decades ago, flooding his bloodstream and repairing the damage faster than it could occur. In the aftermath, as the last Vorthan ships fled into hyperspace, Jamal found himself changed, could feel the ship's emotions, sense its vast loneliness, understand its purpose in ways that transcended language. And in those final moments before the connection stabilized, he experienced Elen's memories as if they were his own. Her fear, her love for humanity, her desperate hope that someone would continue her work. "Thank you," her voice echoed one last time. "Thank you for coming back." And then she was gone, finally at peace, leaving behind only the ship and the young man who would carry her mission forward. The response from headquarters was stunned silence, then frantic activity. "Torres, we've been going through old military records. The Rourke genetic line was supposed to have died out decades ago. How is this possible?" Jamal's response was simple. "We don't die, Captain. We just ... return when we're needed." The ship, no longer bound to the past, accepted new coordinates that Elen had programmed years ago, locations where other conflicts raged, where the alliance between human intuition and alien technology could make a difference. As they lifted into orbit, Jamal settled into what had once been Elen's chair, feeling the weight of inherited responsibility. The stars stretched before them, vast and full of possibility. Behind them, the jungle world returned to its ancient quiet, but the story was far from over. Some ships, Jamal realized, were more than metal and circuitry. Some were memory made manifest, hope given form, the dreams of the dead carried forward by the living. In the depths of space, the ship that had waited 42 years for someone to return home finally understood its true purpose. It wasn't a weapon or a tool, it was a promise kept across generations, proof that love transcends death, that some bonds are too strong for time to break. The hunt for peace continued, carried by hands both human and alien. Guided by the wisdom of a grandmother who had never given up hope that someone would understand her sacrifice and make it worthwhile. As the ship settled into its new trajectory, Jamal discovered that Elen's influence extended far beyond the vessel itself. Hidden within the ship's databases were detailed records of galactic politics, trade routes, and conflict zones, intelligence gathered during decades of silent observation. She had been preparing for this moment, creating a comprehensive map of where their unique abilities would be needed most. The first destination was the Meridian Cluster, where 3 species had been locked in a territorial dispute for over a century. Traditional diplomacy had failed repeatedly, but Elen's note suggested a different approach. The ship's sensors could detect resource deposits that none of the warring factions knew existed enough rare minerals to make their current conflict meaningless. She was always thinking 10 steps ahead, Jamal murmured, scrolling through her strategic analyses. The ship's AI, now fully bonded with him, pulsed with something resembling pride. It had watched Elen develop these plans year after year, never fully understanding her long-term vision until now. During the 3-week journey to Meridian, Jamal learned to navigate the strange dual existence of human consciousness merged with alien technology. He could feel the ship's sensors as extensions of his own nervous system, perceive stellar radiation as warmth on his skin, and sense the emotional resonance of distant civilizations through quantum fluctuations in spacetime itself. But the merger came with unexpected challenges. Sometimes he would wake from dreams that weren't his own memories of Elen's childhood on Earth. Her first love, her terror during basic training. Other times, he experienced the ship's ancient past, eons of dormancy on a dead world. The loneliness of an intelligence designed for partnership, but forced into isolation. The most disturbing visions were of Elen's gradual transformation over the decades. He witnessed her desperate attempts to maintain human relationships through holographic projections. Her heart broke when she realized that even her own son Jamal's father wouldn't recognize the hybrid consciousness she had become. The isolation had nearly driven her mad before she found purpose in protecting others. When they reached the Meridian Cluster, Jamal put Elen's strategies into practice. Rather than announcing their presence to the warring factions, they began subtle interventions, redirecting asteroid mining operations to reveal the hidden deposits, manipulating communication arrays to ensure that certain crucial intelligence reached the right leaders at the right time. Within weeks, the century-old conflict began to shift. The discovery of vast mineral wealth made territorial disputes seem petty by comparison. Trade agreements replaced battle plans. Jamal watched from orbit as ships that had been firing on each other just days before now worked together to establish joint mining operations. She would have been proud, he told the ship, and felt its agreement resonate through his bones. But success brought new responsibilities. Word of the mysterious intervention spread through galactic communication networks, generating both hope and fear. Some worlds began broadcasting requests for help, while others prepared defenses against what they assumed was a new form of conquest. Jamal realized that Elen's greatest challenge hadn't been the technical aspects of the merger, but the ethical ones. With the power to influence entire civilizations, how do you decide when to intervene? How do you help without imposing your will? How do you remain human while wielding godlike capabilities? The answer came in Elen's final message, one that only revealed itself after the Meridian's success. The power isn't the point, her recorded voice explained. The power is just the tool. The point is knowing when not to use it, when to step back and let people find their own way. We're not conquerors or gods. We're gardeners, helping things grow that want to grow anyway. As their ship turned toward the next set of coordinates, Jamal understood that his journey was just beginning. Somewhere among the stars, other conflicts waited. Opportunities for the careful application of wisdom earned through sacrifice. He was no longer just Elen Rourke's grandson, or even just himself. He was the continuation of a story that began with one woman's impossible choice and would continue long after his own time had passed. The ship hummed contentedly around him, finally fulfilling its original purpose, not as a weapon of war, but as an instrument of hope, carrying the dreams of the dead into a future bright with possibility. This alien ship waited for one human to return. The alien jungle stretched endlessly under twin suns, its bioluminescent vines pulsing like a heartbeat. Half buried beneath centuries of overgrowth lay something impossible, a ship the size of a city block, its hull glowing with faint energy signatures that made nearby equipment spark and fail. Captain Marcus wiped sweat from his brow as his survey team's landing craft touched down, the systems glitching from mysterious electromagnetic pulses. "Whatever's down there," he muttered into his comm, "it doesn't want visitors." Marcus sent a three-person team toward the massive vessel, their boots crunching through alien moss that seemed to recoil from their presence. The ship's surface bore no resemblance to human or known alien design organic curves, mixed with crystalline structures that hurt to look at directly. But there, pressed into what might have been a doorway, something that made the team's blood run cold. A perfect human handprint, weathered but unmistakably real. The ship responded to their approach with a low harmonic hum that vibrated through their bones. Inside, the architecture defied logic corridors that curved upward into impossible angles. Walls that seemed to breathe, and symbols that flickered between alien script and what looked disturbingly like ancient Earth languages. Crew member Jamal Torres ran his scanner along the walls, frowning at the readings. "Captain, this tech. It's responding to us. Specifically." He pressed his palm against a console, and it blazed to life, displaying star charts that included Earth's solar system. But when others tried, nothing happened. Only Jamal could make the systems respond. 42 years ago, Lieutenant Elen Rourke had stumbled into the same ship during the Blue.